Welcome everybody to another course of the Photo Professor. This time we're not going to cover some theory, but we're going to have some inspirational video about what you can do with seasons. Now, the seasons, that depends of course on where you live. If you live in Greenland, the season is mostly icy all year round, and some places they have a dry season and a rainy season. We're going to cover in this one the typical northern regions that you may have in Europe, Asia, or even America. So there's typically people talk about 4 seasons: the spring, the summer, the autumn and the winter, but photographically it's more interesting to talk about, because the spring and the summer it may be sunny and you may not see many differences in your photo. So it's better to talk about what's happening in these seasons, like the blooming of the flowers and the trees and such. So we have the beginning of spring, the end of winter, we have the blossoming, we have the green leafy summer, we can have hot dry summers, we have the part of autumn where the leaves start coloring. That can be for a reasonably long time, but sometimes only 1 or 2 weeks, and then all the leaves drop. You have the dull empty winter, and you have of course snowy winter, and sometimes it snows all through the winter in every month, and sometimes you don't see almost any snow. So Japan is known for its cherry blossoms. It's a big party there, but that happens everywhere in the world, also in Europe. And you can see fantastic colors on the trees, especially some kind of trees. Here, for example, in Mexico, Chacicana tree, it's a nice purple color, and the flowers that keep popping up, also a very welcome classical photographical theme. Then you have summer, where you have the blue skies, maybe a little bit of clouds, but sunlit, so very bright, everything. Yellowish maybe from the golden sunlight. You can also have the flowers still in the meadows, and the yellowish color, everybody sitting outside enjoying the sun, even the swans. Le déjeuner sur herbe, typically everybody going to the parks, and that reminds of that famous painting immediately. Having fun in the summer, like going to the cool lakes and stuff. The ice cream is of course mandatory to cool down, and of course the beaches. And then if it stays wet, then summer can go into autumn just like this. You still have the sun, it comes a little bit lower, the light is a little bit more low and directed, but for the rest it still looks a little bit like summer. But some years, in some places, you can have the dry summer and the lakes start drying up. Here it's not so apparent yet that you have drought. Here the whole river is almost gone, but for a few pockets in the distance. And then first the plants with not so deep roots start becoming brown. Interestingly, if it starts raining again, then half of them are still alive and kicking, and they become colorful again. But if it stays dry for a number of months, everything becomes quite brown, and there's also quite a risk of fire. The trees can still get their water because they have deeper roots, and in the end it will end up like this, crackled earth, and here and there a little bit of vegetation left. But then usually the clouds come in, the thunderstorms, and they rain everything nicely wet again. Even floodings, even in the south of Europe, like Porto, or of course the tropics, you can have quite some rain, as we said. And then autumn can kick in with the well-known colors of the leaves, which can be anything. You see here some browns, some yellows. The reddish oranges are very popular in some places. Here you get a totally reddish kind of photo from all the reds in it. Here again in the back you see all the various kinds of, many kinds of greens and yellows, and you wouldn't think there are so many even. Again here, it's a fantastic palette of selected colors, all by nature, because of the chlorophyll gets withdrawn, recycled, and then what is left in a certain degree gives various colors. Especially again the brownish oranges, and then it starts dulling down as the leaves dry up. It becomes a more brownish kind of world. We still have here the needle trees, so they keep green forever. And the leaves start dropping one by one, getting brown. It gets thinner and thinner. Here, for example, this tree still has its leaves, this one has lost everything. And the leaves end up only on the floor, and we start entering end of autumn, beginning of winter. Again, photographically, there may be not so much difference. There's a certain moment, the 21st, where the winter starts, but of course some years it starts earlier and some years it starts later. Anyway, winter is characterized by cold evenings, and then the still moist air creeps up, stays in the mountainous areas, and you see a cold, chilly, misty time appearing, and often you can have quite misty days where you don't see too much happening. This is frost, this is not snow. These are little tiny ice crystals attaching to all the blades of grass. And then you can see how many spiders there are in the forest. All the spider webs, they will become nicely visible because of the frost attaching to them. Mushroom season, the autumn is also associated with the mushrooms and with the hollow. And then we end up with the dull winter. If it's not snowing, all the leaves start blowing in the wind, and then you end up with empty trees and empty landscapes. Just branches, ghostly kind of landscapes, a little bit mist again possibly, not much happening, kind of deadish landscapes. It gives a totally different texture than the leafy trees, of course, but you can even see through them, so it's nice for some photography, like this photo where you see the church between the trees very nicely. And the structures become something by themselves, the repetition of the trees. A different kind of forest. As I said, here you can make photos which you can't make in the summer. You can stand within a tree and then photograph, or just look at the many birds sitting in the dead looking environment. And then the snowy winter can pop up, and you get the bluish, kind of greyish, cold, uninviting atmosphere. But if the sun comes through, it can be bright and fun, because then, although the sun is lower and the light is lower, the snow reflects some of the light and it becomes happy white again. Especially if the sun shines on the snow. So everything is in snow, typical snow landscapes. You have to clean up the roads. Sometimes there's less snow, sometimes there's more snow, but there's enough to slip. The playground is in the snow. The outside countryside in the snow. And then it may start snowing again in the evening, very nicely with the colors of the evening, the snowstorm. Not many people on the road, on the icy road, somebody's bicycle maybe. And then the day after, when it brightens up again not so bright, but even in winter outside it can be quite bright enough for photography, and you find some layers of snow on top of everything, or ice. The water around the castles is frozen, and you get these kind of winter landscapes, white everywhere, but there can be a blue sky, but the lake is totally frozen. You can start skating on it, of course. Typically the middle of the winter, an icy forest with the sun very low, This may be as high as it comes in some northern parts of the world. It doesn't go higher. In some high altitudes you get permanent snow, of course, in the mountains. Thick layers of snow here with a horse head popping up to see what's happening outside of the snow. And you get, as I said, low sun, so very short days, long nights, almost always evening, getting evening early. Nice sunsets. And then of course the animals like the deer, they start preparing for their nightly life or heading for shelter or whatever they're doing. Sorry, this is the wrong direction. And with the cold nights, everything starts freezing in the night, so you get these very nice ice crystal shapes. So here, for example, the water droplets are still attached to the block of ice. And here all the popsicles hanging from the building. Other shapes forming in the ice very nicely. And you can have these kind of refrigerator worlds where you're just in a, almost the air itself, the misty air has almost frozen. So everything is white and darkish grey. But in photography it becomes white typically, because of auto exposure, unless you grade it to a slightly less white color. Again, misty, snowy, refrigerator landscapes. But sometimes the snow can also stick to the branches and then you get these winter wonderland landscapes. Very nice to have a walk in. Icy rivers, icy lakes. It's kind of a world for these guys to live in. Cold, but it can be fun, so people start making use of the ice. They put on their skates and they start skating on the frozen lakes and the frozen rivers, or even ice rings, and even the dogs have fun. So these darkest nights, sometimes in the year there isn't even any snow. Sometimes it's almost as warm in winter as in summer now, with the presumed greenhouse effect or whatever is going on. So, but the darkness is always there, and in the northern regions you get very short days, so people try to make up artificial light atmospheres. They start preparing for the Christmas time. And you can buy the Christmas trees, Christmas ornaments. The snow starts melting away. We're going back towards the summer. Good for the ducks, because now they have regained, apart from a little bit of ice, their river again. And then you get back into the kind of dull winter where there's no snow and it can be even a little bit warm, but you have all these empty trees which give a very interesting photographic subject by itself, because they have all these intricate shapes. And the warmth of early spring starts coming through again, with the sun which is not too high and somewhat a misty atmosphere, but it starts piercing through the winter. And sometimes season can be quite mixed, because as I said, this could be a summer photograph. It's sunny, the sun is what higher a little bit again, nice blue skies, and you might think it's a summer photograph. You don't feel the temperature, but you can see the trees are still thinking it's winter. But the sun, the light starts popping through and starts heating up the earth. And the flowers already know it, the trees not yet, but the flowers start popping up again. And then we finally come full circle. Everything starts blossoming again. So, this was one with just inspiration, no difficult theory in this one, but that also helps you discovering all the kind of stuff you can do with photography. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.